episode is sponsored by Raise Tech, end-to-end IT solutions for your business growth.
Everyone, this is on the Agile Couch, our fourth season, kicking off and going forward. And finally, it took us 3 years to get Charlie to speak with us here on the Agile Couch and do a full-fledged podcast. I know we did some discussions previously, but now we can have more time and discuss more things maybe. So thank you, Charlie, for joining.
Thank you, Garvides, for the invitation. It's really cool to finally have like this full-fledged. I remember even in Kaunas a couple of months ago, it was a bit like the time was a bit rough to get a full-fledged. So this time I'm really on the couch.
Yeah, we finally have a couch.
Yeah.
so everything adds up. All right. So and the topic we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about thing that you strive in, and it's visual facilitation.
Yep.
And using visuals to think and to process your thoughts, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure if it has a formal name to it, but this is give or take the essence, right?
Yeah. So basically, people talk about visual facilitation or visual thinking, and I am, for instance, a teacher for Bicablo, which is a German brand, a German organization that really thought about like how do we teach this technique so that people can use it. So that has really been the intent, and it's really about like making sure that people can also own their own process. I mean, yes, I do it and I can do it, but it's also about when I teach it, it makes no sense that people call me afterwards and, hey, Charlie, can you do this for me? So that's.
So can you draw this for me?
Yeah. I mean, usually I say, hey, come on, you know. Yeah. But this is the thing, because sometimes people say, but you know, Charlie, you do so many things and they're so beautiful and so on, and I mean, especially people who have never like been to a training or practice, because of course you can see things and you can see visuals, you can have books, you can try to copy from the books, but I mean, and people, especially at the start of the training, they tell me I can't draw. But I've stopped believing them, because each time at the end they come up with something. And also one thing that I remember is that, I mean, I also went through the I can't draw phase, but like when I was a kid, and my parents actually kept some of the drawings, but I drew kind of things like potatoes with sticks, and I would go to my dad and say, hey Dad, that's you, and he would say, oh, that's really beautiful. So like, you know, like, yes, I could hold a pen, I could draw on the thing. But once we establish that drawing is easy, and of course there's some techniques for that, then actually we realize that the real challenge is how can we make something useful? You've probably heard of the death by PowerPoint, you know, if you like so many slides. And you can also have death by visuals if you put too many visuals that people don't know what it's all about. So it's really about,
So basically what you're saying that, well, we all can draw. It's our mental sort of a limit that, you know, I can't draw good enough, that puts sort of a boundary there for ourselves.
Yeah, I like this idea of good enough, because many people also have told me that usually at school it's their arts teachers that tell them that they're not good enough. And when people tell me I can't draw, actually how I translate this is, like you said, I can't draw well enough, or they compare themselves to people who have been doing it for years, and they compare themselves to artists or to, you know, like illustrators, to people who do like really professional for years. And like, of course, I mean, I'm not a comic book artist, and I don't strive to be, because people like that do their work. I mean, I'll never be the next illustrator for Asterix, for instance, because it makes no sense. I do this in the work context or in any organizational context for people to make sense of their reality or their context.
Yeah. So basically accepting that it's what is the level that we want to be at, right? That it's not, as you mentioned, artist level.
No, and at some point it's all about combining basic shapes, because I think everyone can draw a triangle. I mean, you know, it's 3 lines. You can draw a square, you can draw a circle. Of course, it might not be perfectly round, but you can recognize the shapes. And then once you start recognizing the shapes, you can put them together and create something a bit more complex, but only using these basic shapes. And this is really the simplicity and the power of especially Bicablo, who really went out of their way to kind of find ways to draw things using the most simple shapes ever, while still being recognizable. It's not abstract art.
Yeah. We shouldn't interpret it in any way we want, right? It needs to make sense.
And that's the thing. It's not about interpretation because, a couple of years ago, I was teaching this in Niger, so Africa. And then at some point, I was saying, hey, like for instance, you can draw a sun for everything that's nice, and you can draw a rain cloud for everything which is bad, which is usually what we do in Belgium. And I don't know about Lithuania.
Yeah, similar.
Okay.
Yes.
Then they started laughing at me.
It's vice versa there.
I mean, they told me, shall we come on? We're in the Sahel region. Nothing grows here. Yeah. We've got the sun all the time. So we are glad when it rains. So for us in the Sahel region, actually, when we put the rain cloud, it means good news. When we put the sun, it means bad news. So indeed, there's we need to be careful with interpretations. Yeah. So it also means know your audience.
Yeah.
Because once you can draw with the basic shapes, it's more about okay, but if what I draw with my Belgian background, will it make sense to graduates from Lithuania? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah. Mentioning Bicablo a couple of times, right? Yeah. So what is that? It's basically a technique of how to learn this visual facilitation, or how you would describe it.
I mean, if you take it at its core, Bicablo is a brand.
Yeah.
So founded by Martin Hausmann in Köln, Germany. Okay. And basically he also started working in organizations and drawing visually whatever their journey was or whatever their context was, so that people could make sense of the context. And then he also realized that people were like, I can't draw, and you do this so beautifully, so please draw, and we will just talk. And he was like, hey, come on, if it's your thing, you need to own it up, and maybe you need to draw. So he thought, how can we make it easy for people to draw things? So first thing is he created a series of books with easy to draw icons, like maybe a bomb to indicate a danger or a risk, or maybe a balloon, or some simple icons that people could reproduce. But still, people told, okay, I can't draw. So then he was some people could copy it, but the thing is how do we make sense of it? So they developed a training concept, which really makes sure that you start from newbie, and then at the end of the training, actually you come back home with one poster that you created and that you can use the next day. Mm-hmm. So the whole concept is, the purpose is when you leave the training, you have already done it once. So you feel confident and then you couldn't do it again.
Okay. So basically empowering the participants to go the journey themselves, in other words. Right. Yeah. Getting back maybe to a bit of a basics of everything, right? So visual thinking or visual management, or I don't know what other names it could be about it. But what is that? Where it's usually used, and what is the benefit of it in general?
Okay, I will not say everywhere, because but still, sometimes you can. For instance, when you go to a store and there's a sale, you will usually find these spiky icons or stickers saying, "Hey, 50% off" or something like that. This is the thing that attracts attention. If you look at comic books, for instance, I mentioned Asterix, you will also see that sometimes the speech bubbles are okay, they are thinking, so they're a bit round, or they are angry, they have another shape. Mm-hmm. But we can use these shapes as well in our own context to indicate maybe that there's anger or that there's some emotions. If, for instance, we have a team which is in conflict, we can represent that visually, because maybe we don't want to stay in that situation. So if they say, we want to have a workshop on conflict solving or something like that, we want to find another way to go together because we're always in conflict, well, I could draw an invitation poster with a bomb maybe at the center, and maybe finding some other ways, so that already when people come in the room, they have an idea, okay, what is it that we're going to do? Or I could just draw a bomb or whatever, conflict in one side of the person and leave the rest open, so that they could draw the new future, the new possibility. Mm-hmm. So that's one example, is using it in workshops. Like you could have your retrospective, you could have, or a 1 day, 2 day strategic workshop to say like, hey, we're going to have our agenda. So on day one, we're going to do this, or in the afternoon, we're going to do that. You've also seen, for instance, here, because we're at Agile in Europe right now, and this is an open space. So this morning, Inge actually was opening the open space while explaining the different rules that were also on the walls.
Yeah.
These rules were written in Lithuanian, but still there was also a drawing, like to kind of give an idea of what it is that we mean, to give some better understanding of what, because sometimes with words we could misunderstand each other.
I'm seeing it, at least when I started using it. I'm not as proficient as you are, obviously, but how I understand it is that there's always this hairy ball of information. We all have some sort of information that we want to translate or sort of a broadcast to someone else. It might be another team, a person, an organization, whatever, and to avoid miscommunication sometimes by using only your words or written language, you use visuals to sort of strengthen the points you want to say, maybe bring attention to some things and make sure we follow, we understand it maybe easier, faster, or just better in general. So this is where sort of how I understand it, right?
It's exactly that. It's about strengthening the understanding, strengthening the point, because we have written some words, and by adding the visual, I'm adding an extra layer of information to kind of limit the possibility of misunderstanding. I'm really adding another layer, because same thing, sometimes when we want to clarify something, we have already written a couple of paragraphs, but maybe we want to make sure that people know what it is that we're talking about. So first thing we do is write a couple of other paragraphs. But what we forget is that this is actually information overload.
Exactly. Yes.
And we don't want that, because we want people to be able to work, to decide, to do whatever it is that are requested from them. So usually the challenge when creating a visual is finding what to put on it and what not to put on it. And you might say, well, Charlie, this is the same thing when you do slides. But like, that's the thing. So basically, again, once you know how to draw, and the rest of the thing that I focus on is like, ask yourselves the right question. For who are you making this poster? Well, maybe go and check with the people. Hey, does it make sense to you?
Exactly.
Because like the same thing a couple of years ago, I was in Benin, which is another part of Africa, and a couple of people in the school and education system followed the training. I thought, great, okay, let's find a way. I asked everyone, okay, now let's draw education, like the word education. And I had drawn like a plant sprouting out of the ground. Because to me, does it resonate with you?
Yeah, when you say it, yes, I can relate to it.
Okay.
It's not a first thought it would come to me when you say education, but
I had written education, and then I had like added the drawing around it. But for you, it makes sense when I say it. It's not the first, and this is the thing. Like, everyone will probably have their different visualization. What was very interesting is, like, I showed it to everyone in Benin, and I had blank faces, like, and somebody told me, Charlie, I don't understand. I was like, well, like, it's about nurturing the soul, education, making sure that, the environment is there for whatever person, kid to learn and make their own decisions based on that. Like, still, I don't understand it. And I'm like, okay, cool, show me all your drawings. And I had teachers, I had schools, I had teachers, I had classes, benches. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Tell me more about this. And then they said, well, for us, the teacher is really the center of education, because they have the knowledge, and their role is to transmit their knowledge to the new generations. And I'm like, wow, so we have one word. And of course, I come from Belgium, my own context, my own thing. So I say, like, this is really interesting, because in my view of education, it's not necessarily transmitting the knowledge, but it's focused on the learners. And then they had an interesting conversation, because it was like, oh, but imagine there's usually help programs between Europe and Africa, and oh, you know, Belgium says, oh, we're going to help you with education. They draft this document, they write it together, we're going to provide funds for education, blah, blah, blah. Everyone agrees, Belgium signs, Benin signs, and then the implementation starts. What happens? Belgium sends teachers to kind of teach their teachers on how to teach differently. They're like, hey, we actually want new schools. Our teachers are okay, because, and that's the thing, if you focus on the word without the understanding of the word. So we were like, oh, this is probably also one of the reasons why sometimes these programs between Europe and Africa, they just fail, even though we agree on the words, we don't agree on the meaning.
Yeah. And that's actually a very good point you're making. It's, you don't even need to go to Africa, you know, and compare it to Europe to have the dissonance. You can take two companies, both in Europe, both in, I don't know, even Scandinavia, but the company cultures are very different. And the words that you use in one place could mean, I don't know, take a word, plan. You know, in one company, it could mean like, understand the plan. It's some sort of a high level thing that we might need to achieve, and you know, we think it's needed. It's there. Another company, and I face that situation. That's what I'm explaining, and that's why I'm sort of using that. Another company, whenever you use plan, they sort of freak out and they start, you know, riding around and complaining that, you know, it's bad, it's ruining our culture. We shouldn't have plans, because in their head, plans is detailed step-by-step things that, you know, someone will come and give them, and they don't want to lose the freedom they had, even though, you know, they agree that they need to have those high-level things as the other company. So basically, the idea, they match, they agree on the concept. Just the word, you know, sort of skews the view they have, the meaning, and so the conflict starts.
And this is it, because conflicts usually starts from misunderstandings. And what we want to do with visualization, I mean, usually I also say, don't stay with your first version of the poster, because have a check with reality. I mean, we've talked, I mean, yesterday I was in a session with Jakub on what was it, design thinking and design dash, and it was about like, hey, you've got prototypes, test them out, have real users use and comment it. Like, imagine I was doing a visual on teaching in Benin with the plants and everything. I mean, even if I would do the visuals in my own ivory tower, it would be a misunderstanding, because I didn't understand their reality. So it has to be co-constructed.
Exactly. All right, interesting terms. Any sort of a cons you see of visual thinking, or where it should not be applied or try to be applied, any areas or whatever?
I mean, if you're using it to, I mean, I'm going to not answer the question. I'm going to more say like to me, what it is, it's a tool to really build a common understanding. So this is where I would encourage people to use it. But then people sometimes use it to record conferences. People use it to sketch note whatever happened in a workshop they were in. So like, what I would rather recommend is like, when you use it, make sure you use it purposefully, if it makes any sense. So like, it's the whole thing, like if you only have one tool, you know, if you only have a hammer, then everything is a nail. But like, make sure when you use it, it has a purpose, because it can easily be, oh, I don't do PowerPoints, I do visualization, I'm much better. But what you don't see is that that person makes 350 flip charts, which is the same stupidity of doing PowerPoints with 350 slides. It's more about like knowing how to use them. So like, if it's about group work, it's about creating understanding. If it's about announcing a new topic, I mean, sometimes you even see like when you do commercials, like, hey, you're going to launch a new product, you could do it yourself. I've got some people who have illustrated the book using their own handmade visuals. Somebody else have been asked to draw birthday cards based on the simple drawing. So like, I mean, I wouldn't say you can use it everywhere, because, you know, you won't use it probably to prepare a dish. However, I don't know, maybe. Maybe for some cookbooks, you could also imagine having some drawings. But it's more like make sure that the way you use it is relevant for your goal.
Yeah.
Be aligned with the goal.
Absolutely. As it goes with everything, right? You need to know where you're going before
Yeah.
you start the journey.
Yeah, exactly. And just don't do it because it looks fun or because it looks nice. Do it because it has a goal.
Yeah. All right. Say we have a goal. What
Okay.
are the first steps, first things, if you want to get into the visual facilitation? What would that be? Should I learn basic shapes as you mentioned? Should I don't know, just start drawing, do whatever? What's
I mean, some people start by drawing and by doing it, and some people start by taking the books and copying the icons and like practicing. One recommendation is if you want to use it with groups and if you want to also have feedback on what you, because if you're copying it from books or if you're like studying it on your own, it's great and you can have feedback from others. If you want to learn and grow with others, I would recommend you to go to a training, not because I want to sell more trainings, because there's many people teaching that, but like if you go to a training, you have the opportunity also to learn and grow with people who are not necessarily from your trade.
okay?
So you can get inspiration from where they are going to use it. And it will again also help you like master this skill of using it for groups and with groups.
All right. That is a good point. I actually have been in a couple of trainings in visual facilitation,
Okay.
and the lecturers use very different shapes, at least.
All
You know,
right.
how they draw a person, how they draw, you
Yeah.
know. There was the star people that, you know, I was when it was sort of a recommended. Someone just said, you know, a couple of sticks together, that could be a person. So interesting to see that those techniques are different. But I agree that, you know, you just, you know, whatever sticks to you. If you
Yeah.
just have something to go compare, you know, to try, that's...
Yeah, because I've had a training where I had some people who worked for a video game company, Ubisoft, and in the same room there was somebody. I mean, it was online. I had somebody from Niger who worked on peace building activities in Niger. So, like with youth who have been through terrorist groups and have blood on their hands, and he's like, "Hey, there's another chance in life." So he does workshops with them. So he was also learning. And then I also had project master or scrum master. I don't recall. So, like many different people from many different communities coming together to learn that craft together. There's something really beautiful about that because then you learn as a group, you learn as a community.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. What to follow? Any recommendations? So people want to get more into, you know, this visual facilitation thing. Of course, this Bicablo you already mentioned.
mean,
That's
yeah.
something. But any I don't know, blogs you also recommend. Maybe you do something that, you know, we can follow. And
I mean, you can always follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's one thing. So, of course, I teach Bicablo and I would recommend Bicablo training because from what I've heard, I have some people who went to different trainings and they told me the thing that Bicablo really taught me is how to use it in my context. So, like, that's really if you, but like, I'm not forcing. There's also a couple of meetups and blog. You've got the ScotViz meetup, which happens in Scotland. You've got the Visual Jam, which is a regular meetup also with where you got opportunities to practice and some stuff like that. So, but I would really like I mean, my first hint would be just try it out. You know, like I tried a couple of years ago before I ever heard about Bicablo. I remember I was a scrum master and I had drawn for instance, at the end of the board, I had drawn a big treasure chest. And so every time a ticket was finished, we could put it on the treasure chest. And I mean, didn't serve maybe any, but it kind of did something to the team. And there was a kind of, yes, you know, we did it. And it's about these little things and start using them. And then I think you're the only ones who will know what you need, and maybe you're okay with what you have right now. I'm interested in when people, for instance, sign up for a course that they're going to use it. Just don't do it. I mean, this is also a real recommendation. Don't go to a course if you think, you know, hey, it looks nice, but you're not really sure whether you'll use it or not. Because in 2 days, you will see that you come from 0 to hero. Like
Yeah.
you have done your own poster. But if afterwards you don't have this, I'll use the word discipline or like
Yeah.
habit.
Yeah.
Let's use habit because discipline might be a bit like if you don't have the habit of practicing, well, you just threw your money down the drain.
Absolutely. One thing that I've been doing, we had sort of a community of people who
Yeah.
started to try in one of the companies I work with, start to try visual facilitation.
Okay.
We just had a group, don't recall whether it's Teams or Slack. What we did is someone were posting one word every day, so that just draw,
Yeah.
and completely random words. It could be like sunshine, like specific things like sunshine. It could be something like confidence, right? So how would you draw it? Just one drawing, one sort of a draw, and it's really nice. First of all, because you practice.
Yep.
Second of all, you just build your own sort of a library of icons of your own.
Yep.
Third of all, it's really nice, like in a couple of years' time, to come back and see.
The evolution.
Oh my God, did I do that?
Yeah,
But still, that's a progress. So that's also nice to see your progress, right?
Yeah, and this is also something because indeed this aspect that you share, there is this community aspect, and I'm a firm believer that people learn in groups.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when it's about things like visualization, things like facilitation. Working together. So like, it's about even I would say theater is also something you learn in group because at some point you need to find how you'll play together on the scene. So
Exactly.
it's find people with whom you can hang out. Don't stay in your ivory tower. And just because even illustrators, they do something and then they ask for feedback, so they iterate. So this is really important.
All right, getting to the end. Last
Ready.
question. Yeah, time flies by, doesn't it? When you have interesting discussions. I don't know. Remember some sort of a most crazy drawing or something you needed to do that so somehow stick to you. I don't know whether it was most important or most bizarre or whatever. What would that be? What you were drawing there?
So I think the most bizarre or the most was maybe not bizarre but more the most bizarre experience.
Yeah.
Was in 2020. Like after March 2020, lockdown and everything. And then Tobias Meyer, I don't know if you've heard of him. He wrote the People Scrum. He called me and said, hey, we could do a couple of workshops called the Why of Scrum, where I would be talking about some things and then you would do the visualization. So the strange experience for me, because it would be online, of course, COVID, lockdown, but the crazy experience for me was to draw all of this live while being remote, because I think it was the first time that I would do a graphic recording of something remotely.
Okay.
So I would be used before that to kind of be in the room and then listen and then have all the things, but with online the interactions are a little bit different. So I needed to focus as well as what was happening like on the screen, but also on the poster. So it was kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
But afterwards I've done it a couple of more times. But I think that was really the thing. And like now I do it online, but I always keep paper. I'm not doing it digitally.
Yeah.
But paper, you have sometimes document cameras that you can use on your desk, and
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Charlie, for coming, for talking, for sharing. Probably it's not the last time we'll talk. We have a tendency to meet and do one more video or about something.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for joining, for taking your time, and enjoy your time in Vilnius.
Thank you, Gražvydas.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.